Hello, this is Zahirul Alam. Welcome you all on Frankly Speaking. Our guest today is Dr. Stephen Frowein, head of the delegation of the European Commission to Bangladesh. He is very familiar face in Bangladesh and is in Bangladesh for more than 3 years. We welcome Dr. Stephen Frowein on Frankly Speaking.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. There have been a lot of discussions about the election, whether it is going to be held in due time by December 18, and there are a lot of significant development by this time. So how convinced you are now from the European Union side that the election is going to be held within this time?
Yes, I will first of all thank you very much for inviting me again to Frankly Speaking. This is my second time with you. First time was in 2006, and I remember it was a very interesting discussion we had there. Yeah. So I hope today it will be the same. Indeed, we at the European Commission, and I can speak even for the European Union in that sense, we believe that this election will take place on the 18th of December, as it is announced by the chief advisor. It was announced in his speech, and as it is now considered to be the date that will be taken as the day of your election. I think this we can believe in that. You know that we have been invited to observe the election, and yes. In that sense as well, for us it's important to believe in that day because we are preparing for it to observe. Sure. And election observation missions are invited by the country that holds elections, so we are invited. We are invited by the government, and we are invited by the Election Commission. And we are preparing to come. Okay. So for
when
us,
you are coming?
Yeah, for us it is important to be part of this, as we have already been part of those donors who have supported the voters list with photographs, which was a very successful program which has been finalized recently, and where we were, as European Commission, one of the biggest donors or the biggest donor to contribute to this program. In that sense, we are involved already in that procedure. Okay. Because we have been helping you to prepare for it. Yeah. Now we are looking forward to be part of it as observers.
Excellency, we know that you are going to send, or European Union observation mission will arrive soon in Bangladesh. Mm-hmm. What will be their way of style to work in Bangladesh in terms of observing the election process? Mm.
Yeah, we have at the European Commission, at the highest level, the Commissioner for Foreign Relations has decided to follow a step-by-step approach, which means as we are considering that the conditions are not totally fully right for a fully fledged observation mission, we're coming with an assessment team of what we call a core team. Okay. This core team of about 10 people will then be completed by another small team of long-term observers 1 week later, of 12 long-term observers, a team of 2 for each of your divisions. Okay. And they will then assess the situation and communicate back to the commissioner in Brussels what they think about the political situation and whether they believe that a free and fair election can be held under the given circumstances. Once they recommend...
How many members will be constituted of the first core
team? The first 10 core team and 12 long-term observers, 22 people.
22.
They will be working for 2 weeks together, okay. And they will then make the assessment, and that will go back to Brussels. And then I hope very much, and many others hope, the conditions will be right to decide in Brussels to make it a fully fledged observation mission, which means there will be a chief observer sent. Mm-hmm. He is the political head of the observation mission. He's a member of the European Parliament, and he will most probably be the same as last time. It's Alexander Graf Lambsdorff, a German member of European Parliament. And then the long-term observers will be extended by at least another 36 people, which means we're coming up to 46 or 48 long-term observers. Okay. And at the day of the election, a few days before and a few days after, we have another 80 long-term observers. 80. Okay. So the full team will consist of something like 80 plus 46 plus 10 which is something like
130,
136, 140.
Around 140.
140. And there are some countries, for instance, like Switzerland, which is not a member of EU.
Yeah.
They are willing to send extra observers which will join into the team. So there might be even a few more.
When the first team will arrive in Bangladesh?
The first team is due for the 6th of November.
Due. Okay. That will be headed first by the Lambsdorff, the European
No, he will
Parliament.
at that time not be there. Because that is still the technical assessment mission where we don't have the political part of it.
Okay.
So the leader, the chief observer, comes only into the game when the decision is made to make it a fully fledged observation mission, an EU observation mission. So then
what are
in.
the issues they will assess at that time? Is that the civil and political rights?
Yes.
Is that all?
As you can see, the core team is constituted of experts in legal matters, for instance, in election matters, in electoral law matters, in logistics, in security matters, and they will look into the situation and will assess the situation. They have sufficient comparison to other elections where they have been working, and the team is getting more and more professional. There's a strong methodology behind it, so they know what they do. There's experts and specialists. So they will make their assessment. The long-term observers are people that are recruited from lists that the member states put together, again, on the basis of using the best technocrats with the greatest experience. And we are taking from these lists the people together as long-term and short-term observers. So when you look to the team of these 140 or even 140 plus people, they're all experts in election observation.
Okay.
And they're doing it all over the world.
Okay.
And they have a methodology, which is our own EU methodology. And that's why we are so appreciated in the world as election observers, because we have this independence, neutrality, very good methodology and experience. And that is what people appreciate with our missions,
Okay.
because it can give a statement about the situation that is comparable to international standards, and therefore gives credibility to the election.
Theoretically, we know that the European Union, they don't observe election under when the emergency completely is in place.
Yeah.
But in Bangladesh, our chief advisor and the authority, they have assured that the emergency power rules, most of them are, presumably bar or stand against to the free process of political campaign for election, that will be removed. So what do you, ideally, how do you look at the situation that when completely emergency is not lifted, there you are coming to observe the election? What is the difference?
My answer will have to be a little bit theoretical, because it will depend on the assessment of the core team. But my perception is that the ideal for us is lifting of state of emergency, because we don't like to observe under state of emergency, and we've never done it in the world. So it would be a precedent. We don't want to set a precedent. So ideal lifting of state of emergency, total lifting, sooner or later in the process. But what is important more than the legal niceties and the words for us is the content. Now, what is the content of this? Is the election has to be free and fair. In order to be free and fair, it needs the right to assembly. People must have the right to assemble, to discuss, and to campaign. The parties must have the right to campaign in great numbers. This is traditionally so. Journalists must be able to report freely on what they see and what is happening. The candidates must have access to the media. These are all what we call election-related freedoms. And that's what is the contents we're looking on. So we're not looking that much on what it is called, but we're looking on what it is in reality, when it comes to elections. So it's not for me to say whether this is in place, but it's for the core team. Once they have assessed it and said it's okay, then we get the green light from Brussels for a full mission. Okay. And that's what we're all hoping for, to be quite clear. We want a full EU election observation mission, because only that full EU election observation mission allows for a comment and a statement after the election that gives you the statement of the observation. Because if we are not there with a fully fledged mission, we will not make a statement.
Okay. Okay. Dr. Stephen, the political parties has already embarked on the election process, and we expect that very soon they will reveal their manifestos, their programs, and their course of actions for the coming days, and their pledges, what they'll do if they're elected on election December 18. But from the European Union side, we know that you're one of the active development partner of Bangladesh in many ways, including business to development activities. So ideally, what do you expect from the political parties or the future government that should focus on, especially to combat or to deal with the challenges of coming days?
Yeah, first of all, we hope that this election, which is only a step in the democratic process, will bring about an elected parliament with people who are putting back into parliament the national dialogue on questions that concern the country. That is what it's all about in democracies, is that in parliament there are debates about questions concerning the country's future and concerning where the country will go. So I think the dialogue should not be on the streets, it should be in parliament. And in your country you have this absolutely fantastic parliament building where many people are jealous.
Building is very good.
It
no
is
doubt.
One of the nicest I know. And my personal hope, so to say, would be that inside the parliament you would have the nice discussions and dialogues that correspond to the nice building you have, and that it would be at the same level, because this is a fantastic building. So if you have fantastic debates, you will have a fantastic political environment, and then this country can immensely benefit from that democratic step. Now, we as development partners, and I'm one of them, there are many, first of all, we coordinate our approaches very much in following the Paris Declaration to be more effective, more efficient, and more coordinated. And we want as well to be more aligned to the government and your ownership of the development process. So I think what we would be looking forward to is a clear concept of the new government, where it wants to go in development. And we want to offer then our help, our support to the leadership and the ownership of the incoming government about where this country is willing to go and where this country wants to go in development.
You have a country strategy action plan for Bangladesh during from 2008 to 2011?
Yeah, I mean, the current one is 2007 to 2010, and then there will be a new one from 2011 to 2013. But all of the donors have that kind of, some of them have it in a more joint venture, doing it together and have a common joint strategy, others not, but we're all trying to come closer to each other in coordinating our strategy, in the ideal case to have a joint donor strategy aligned to the government strategy in order to do it all together.
But do you think that after holding the election, when the new government comes in power, you will reassess or reevaluate your strategy or action program?
Yes, well, ideally it would be very good to do this at the moment when the new government is in place. I must say, unfortunately, we have our own rhythms, and we have certain things that are already decided over a longer term, and we have others that will be decided again. In my case, fortunately, we are next year in the process, when it comes to the European Commission, in the process of a midterm review of our cooperation strategy, which is a very ideal timing. We will be thinking about how to adapt our program to the realities. And that's the ideal moment for us to say, now there is a new government, there are new objectives, there are new responsibilities and priorities. Maybe we are able to, with the government in dialogue, to adapt to a certain degree as much as possible to the new ways they want to do it, so that we are the most useful possible in the process of development.
You know that the global economic crisis is getting bad to worse day by day.
Yes.
So, there are a lot of apprehension in the developing world, including Bangladesh also, how the global recession or economic meltdown can impact on the small economies like us.
First of all, I agree with you that this is really a crisis. We are in a deep crisis. I think it's unprecedented in that magnitude, and we're all concerned. The US, the EU, the whole world, and certain countries more than others, and certain developing countries more than others. Yeah. When it comes to Bangladesh, I think there is an analysis to be made that is well structured. I think for me personally, my analysis would be, you are export-oriented country with a lot of manufactured goods that have to go to European and US markets. I think something like 90% of your exports, garments mainly, are going to the US and the EU. I think EU is with 53% the biggest destination. Now it's clear when you have to offer to the international market products that go into a market where the countries in question are in financial difficulties, people might be, buying less, doing more savings. Now the question is, are the goods you are exporting and producing goods that are sensitive to be reduced in the request, in the demand of the people there? The second, it's very important to see the whole picture. I think the second thing you are doing, and where most of your foreign currency comes from, is remittances. It's very important that you export labor. You export unskilled labor, a little bit of skilled labor. But what they all do, and that's very kind of them and very nice of them, they send all back home to the families a lot of money. Now these remittances might as well be reduced as the countries where these people work might need less of your workers. The third element, I think, is overseas development assistance, ODA, which means the development partners support.
That is my question.
People say that might be reduced as the countries who are offering the money from their taxpayers might be themselves in difficulties to find the money and the necessary funds to support their banks and their enterprises in bankruptcy or in difficulty, their financial institutions. So it's a kind of a logical thinking to say, if they need more money for their banking system and financial systems, they might have less available for development. But if the crisis continues over a longer period, this might be a problem. So putting it all together, I would say, there is a problem maybe with your export goods as you're export-oriented and as you're manufacturing goods. You might have a problem with your remittances, maybe a little less. You might have a problem, but it's very unlikely, with having less development assistance. But overall, this gives a picture that thanks to your economic structure and thanks to the fact that you are, so to say, export-oriented and labor exporting, and not highly dependent on overseas development assistance. You are taking it happily, but it's not the most important factor for you from outside. And that is, I think, the last point I would like to make in this analysis of the crisis. It should show to the decision makers of the country, and that will be the new government, the newly elected government, that you have to look after your own internal market as well. You have to develop more internal growth, rural development, and livelihood of the Bangladeshis in Bangladesh to be less dependent of the markets. And at the same time as well, diversification of the products to the outside, but as well to the destinations. Because now you're so much depending on US and EU, and that is where the crisis is the biggest.
So, Ambassador, getting back to the first question again, that you see virtually no hurdles ahead of election, before the election, peaceful, acceptable, participatory election on December 18. Your last comment.
Oh, I think there are, because finally I think the biggest responsibility for successful elections and for a successful period after the elections is with the political parties. And I think we shouldn't underestimate the big responsibility that carry the political parties of this country to make it, first of all, a campaign that is informing the people in the right way about what they intend to do. That's a question of the manifestos, of the intentions after being elected. What do I want to do? Or what do I want to do if I'm not elected? This is very important for the people. But it is as well important that the political parties behave responsibly when it comes to the run-up of election day. And I think the most important, and I would really stress this with you and everybody who's listening, the most important is after election. I think the most difficult thing in all the elections we observe all over the world, we find, is the acceptance of the results of the elections by the winner and the loser. I'm pretty sure that in the run-up to the elections, everything will be fine. I'm pretty convinced that the election will be a very good one, based on a very good voters list, based on very dynamic people who are very much interested in democracy. You Bangladeshis, you all want to vote. You're politically interested. You're very interested in democracy, very interested. So I think this will all lead to a very, very good motivation, a very good spirit to go to that. But nobody speaks of what after? What are we doing afterwards? So I think the real problem is, what do we do with all this when it goes fine? Will we continue to be on the positive path? Will we continue to make out of this more? Because democracy is not election alone.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining with us. Dear viewers, Bangladesh wishes to move out of dependency on foreign aid and concentrate on trade as a tool for development. We're heading towards an election, but prior to that, we need a very good governance, a very good election, and a very peaceful transition of democracy. In the stride of holding election, very peaceful and participatory election, we hope European Union will enhance, deepen, and strengthen their cooperation in a true spirit of partnership. We thank you very much for watching, and we invite you to watch our next episode. Until then, to take care.